Hi everyone, this is Devin Francis, aka Leonard
And
Meltzner,
Victoria Francis.
and you're watching episode 29 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Almost at episode 30, very
This
exciting.
makes me feel old, and I don't know why.
Because you are old, so am I. What are we doing today,
We
Victoria?
are talking about a kid's show, which we should probably not be doing since we're so old, apparently.
It's not a kid's show, don't you remember
I was
episode
kidding.
4?
Okay, so we are doing a what if today, and the topic is
Number 3.
What if Eugene never lost his parents?
Oh, the implications. The implications are so much more than any of you probably realize, but we're going to get into that because there are a lot of them.
We thought it would take us about 15 minutes to plan this episode like it usually does for the what ifs. It took us about 2 hours, and that's not, exaggerating. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Eugene's consequences just kept on
I hope you guys
branching out.
appreciate what we go through for you. Anyway, so spoiler warning ahead
before
we
yes,
jump into it.
yes.
There are major spoilers for the big sagas.
Everything.
And pretty much anything else.
For everything.
So if you are a non-spoileraholic like Devin,
or you just haven't heard everything.
then you might want to just steer clear of this one until you listen to all the Odyssey episodes.
Yeah. Before we start, announcement that needs to be made, very exciting. Excuse me. Album 58. Woo. Album 58. A bunch of stuff has been released about that. Number 1, the title, The Ties That Bind.
I like that title. It's better than Clashing
Number
Cymbals.
2, the album artwork has been released, which I will put here for just a couple of seconds, and whoop, there we go, now it's gone. I'll put the link down in the description if you want to look at it in high def so you can see it better. And the album description has been released. Now, I should note right now, the episode titles have not been released, which means we're not discussing our thoughts on things yet. This is not the predictions episode. There will be one once the episode titles are released. Right now, we're just giving you the information. We're not going to comment on it, except for the fact that we're really excited about it. All that other stuff we're going to save for when we do a predictions episode, or like we did for the OAC, maybe the predictions will just be an addendum onto another episode. Either way, that's not this, but here is the description, courtesy of the Adventures in Odyssey blog. Thank you, Austin and Tasha. Comet Connellsville, the Let's Get Together Festival. Who knew that 2 events could trigger so much drama in Odyssey? Wooten's announcement about a family of detectives leads to suspicion and intrigue. Wit's challenge of some popular ideas causes a difficult tug-of-war between conviction and compromise, and the surprise arrival of a few friends and former adversaries creates the perfect blend of excitement, comedy, and important life lessons for everyone. The Ties That Bind contains 12 all-new episodes exploring questions about God's design for marriage and family, loyalty, redemption, commitment, and love. It's a collection for your whole family to enjoy and talk about. There we go, and I'll also put the link for that, either the blog post or if it's already up on AIOO Wiki, I don't know. Either way, that'll go down in the description.
I don't know about you guys, but when I first heard that description, my heart skipped a beat when I heard former adversaries.
We're not commenting on things yet. We are both extremely excited about everything in there, but we're not going to talk about specifics yet until we do our predictions episode, and then we can freak out. All right. What if Eugene never lost his parents? So, basically, the point of this question is really the idea of what would happen if Eugene never came to Odyssey at all. Him never losing his parents is simply the vehicle through which we decided to cause that to happen. Just like the first episode, we wanted Wit out of the picture, see what would happen.
People.
Our vehicle for that was him dying in World War II. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff here. Let's dig right into it because it's a long list. Number 1, if Eugene never lost his parents because they never went to Africa. I should clarify that's what we mean. He never lost them because they never went to the Ashanti village in Africa. So first off, Dalton Kern, who was working with the Wolofs there, would have been unable to find any more gold without Leonard to help him. And so, based on what we can infer from the top floor, if he wasn't able to find any more gold to pay off the Wolofs, then they probably, based on the things that he did, would have turned him into the authorities because he wouldn't have been able to bribe them to turn blind eyes. So Dalton Kern would have been thrown in jail. Then Eugene, living with his family, never would have moved in with the Burnetts, never would have gone to Camp Jumonville and met
Which
young
really
Connie
sucks, because
in
that's one of
California.
my favorite episodes.
It's a very good episode. I just heard part of it last night, actually. Never would have moved to Odyssey, which is our important point. He would have attended school in Chicago instead, because that's where he was born, that's where he lived before he moved in with the Burnetts. He might have visited Campbell County, possibly to see Hiram when he was older, his grandfather, Garvey Hiram Meltzer.
How would he know about his Oh, never mind. Never mind.
But he probably would have never gone to Campbell County Community College. Whit would have ended up hiring someone else instead to work in Connie's place when she went to California in Connie Part 1 and 2.
I bet it was Jimmy.
And we have...
For those of you who remember Jimmy.
Yeah, he would have rehired Jimmy.
Those 2 people that remembered Jimmy.
For the 2 episodes that he was in. We have no idea as to who it could have been, so that's an enormous wild card in this assessment. For the purposes of this analysis, we're just going to kind of ignore that mystery person that we hired. What next, Victoria?
So, if Eugene never tried to connect all of Wits End with the Master Control Program when he first arrived in Connie, the episode, not the... Yeah, that makes no sense. And it's possible that Whit never would have had the idea to do the same thing with applesauce. And so if he never did that with applesauce, then Connie would have never found out about the computer room or been fired in album 5.
Either way, Connie wouldn't have found out about the computer room because Whit only told Eugene. He wouldn't have told Connie because she doesn't know about computers.
And she can't keep secrets.
Yeah. So this is actually something cool. Independent of all of this, I realized this for the first time while Victoria and I were writing this, that evidence shows, and I'll explain the evidence in a second, that Blackard came to Odyssey to open Blackard's castle, not, like, he came there when he did, not because Eugene and Connie accidentally activated applesauce, but simply because he had just finished his doctorate in child psychology after he failed to buy the Fillmore Recreation Center through the Webster development firm. Because I always assumed, because Blackard came to get applesauce, and this happened right after Connie and Eugene accidentally activated it, so I figured he found out somehow, and he's like, now's my chance to go in and steal it. But, in fact, the reason that he came was because, if you think, the applesauce saga takes place 1 year after Adventures in Odyssey began, and one of the first episodes of the show, Recollections, Tom says that Wits End has been open for 4 years. That means that the applesauce saga takes place 5 years after the Fillmore was bought and turned into Wits End. Blackard says in the battle, Part 1, I believe, to Richard that he's been working for 5 years to get into this town.
I love Richard much.
What are you saying? Because so basically what happened, that's the other 5 years there. He failed to buy it with the Webster development firm, and in those 5 years since, he spent 5 years getting his doctorate in child psychology so that he'd be able to go and open Blackard's castle, have an inn to get into the town there so he could steal applesauce. So it was a coincidence, I say that word very lightly when we're talking about Adventures in Odyssey, of course, that he happened to come at the same time because he had literally... So, well, from what we can gather, he got... As soon as he failed to buy the Fillmore, he immediately went and started studying to get a doctorate in child psychology. It took him 5 years, and as soon as he finished it, he went and opened Blackard's castle, and that's what brought him there. So he would have come anyways, even if Eugene and Connie hadn't activated the program.
So yeah, I never thought
Victoria?
that Eugene and Connie activating it had anything to do with him coming at that time.
Well, I don't think I thought that per se. I'd never really thought about it before, to be honest.
So...
What happens
so
next?
evidence shows no, that's the one
that's what
Devin
I just read.
did. Okay. So Connie never would have been fired, like we already talked about. So she wouldn't have worked at Camp Whatanut. She wouldn't have gotten into that. She wouldn't have gotten into that fight with Lucy. Lucy would have still been sent home because of all the stuff she was doing with Jill. But it's very likely that she would have talked about all the things that happened with Connie and Whit instead of just avoiding them like she did in album 5. So therefore she wouldn't have tried to help Blackard, and she wouldn't have been injured in the imagination station. So we can blame Eugene on hurting Lucy.
Yes. So yeah, she wouldn't have turned to Richard if she'd had Connie and Whit, although she didn't really do anything to help them per se, so it wouldn't really have affected Blackard much. It only would have affected Lucy because she never would have got
Bless you.
hurt. Thank you. So Eugene obviously wouldn't have got hired at Campbell County Community College Computers, the 5 Cs, but Mr. Burgomeister probably still would have started monitoring the great changes at the same time as he did in the Alpha timeline. Without Eugene's changes to get in the way, Nicholas would have been caught changing the grades instead, and with nothing to lose at that point...
Bless you again.
Excuse me. Thank you. With nothing to lose, Nicholas probably would have exposed Richard, so Richard would have had to move on to helping Blackard full-time anyways.
And would Nicholas have been sent back to the school?
He would have, and so he would have had to be in regular school instead, which is what happened anyway somewhere along the point, because then, he was in school
they kind
with...
of screwed up his character, and they never talked about it. That's something that's always annoyed me.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
He's like such a good kid, and then all of a sudden he's just like evil and manipulating Isaac and Sam.
Maybe he became embittered after he got kicked out of the college and sent back, to regular school, which obviously happened at some point. It would have happened
definitely some point after album 6, but there's like a huge time gap between album 6 and
11 albums.
Like album, is it 17? I think it's 17. Yeah.
It's the power on earth as it is in heaven, the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. So yeah, that would have still happened. It just would have happened earlier. So, to tie up the Blackards, or not quite yet, sorry, there's more stuff here. Whit probably still would have figured out that Blackard was behind everything going on. Now, here's the big one.
This is the one I want to say because I'm the one
I was going to say, Victoria's going to say this because she realizes this is something huge. I never would have picked up on this unless she figured it out.
And then after I did, Devin was gaping at me, like jaw all the way on the ground for like 10 minutes in shock.
Okay.
So, everyone listen up. If you're sensitive, then leave now. Connie and Whit wouldn't have needed to make up because they never got in their fight because she wasn't fired. And because of this means that Blackard would have come up with another way to get Whit away from the council meeting. And whatever that plan is, it was likely that Whit wouldn't have been close enough to Tom's farm to notice the fire. So this is where it gets really intense. Blackard would have still made Richard burn down Tom's barn, but without Whit and Connie to be there, because they were the ones who arrived in enough time to save Tom because he was knocked out when the door fell on him.
And they were only there because it was at Stone Bridge. If Blackard used another plan, Whit probably wouldn't have been at Stone Bridge. He'd be somewhere else and wouldn't have seen the smoke.
Yep. So because of that, Tom would have been killed by the fire.
Yes. So, big consequence number 1 of Eugene not coming. Tom is now dead as of album 5.
And it only goes downhill from here, folks.
Richard would have still burnt down the Blackard's palace, and Blackard would have still escaped. However, once Richard was caught, he would have gone to jail for much, much longer because he killed Tom instead of just being convicted for arson and almost killing Tom.
And this is just something I'm wondering, but maybe in kind of the same way that Tom had a huge grudge against Richard for burning down his barn. Imagine how big a grudge like Bernard and the others and Whit and Connie would have against Richard if they killed Tom.
Yeah.
Like, they probably still would have forgiven him, but because Tom's more stubborn than they are, so that's why he took longer to come around. But still.
Yeah, That's always been Tom's biggest character flaw, is forgiveness.
So did you just say the palace? Yeah, you did. Okay.
So Bernard is never going to meet Eugene, of course, and they're never going to learn that they're related. Moving to album 10, Waylaid in the Windy City, Whit took Connie to Chicago, and Richard would have still been in Campbell County Detention Center at this time because he had just been released in the Alpha timeline for good behavior. And that was for arson and other assorted crimes. If he had been convicted of, I don't know if that'd be second-degree murder or whatever, he would have definitely still been in there, so he would not have been able to help Whit out, which means that without Richard's help, Connie would have been kidnapped, she would have got back, but Blackard definitely would have gotten away with the government computer. He would have either sold them or used them in some way. We're going to assume it wouldn't be significant, because I don't know how we'd factor that in specifically into our analysis.
Would Connie be released by Blackard? Because he was taking her in the car when Wood arrived.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have, taken her, because, he doesn't dirty his hands like that. He doesn't want to get anything on him. I don't think he would have kept her. He would have dropped her off somewhere in the slums or something like that.
Killed her.
Somewhere untraceable.
He could have killed her.
I don't think so.
So we should have a little body count on the side of the screen or something like that.
Well, we can assume probably at least 10 people died from Blackard getting that government
I think it'd
project,
be more than 10,
files.
but I know what you're talking about.
At least. Yeah. So, next.
So Connie, or the other employee who I'm going to name Indigo, would have gone to Mexico to search for the Cross of Cortez, and most likely everything that happened in that episode would have turned out the same.
Yeah. Especially since you didn't speak Spanish or anything.
I mean, that one person probably wouldn't have a crush on Connie or Indigo, I'm assuming. So...
Oh, Mendoza.
Yeah, Mendoza.
Well, there is that, so... Who knows?
The bull and...
we don't...
But they were trapped
We
in
don't
a
know her.
thing with the bull.
Yeah, I know. But we don't know how everything...
They would have been killed by that.
Yeah, but Connie probably would have been smart enough to
Devin.
Connie probably would have realized that was a person. Eugene was a little too preoccupied with muttering Spanish to himself to realize that he was locked in. I think Connie would have figured it out beforehand.
I love that conversation so much. The key por la puerta.
A key por la puerta.
No, I don't need a key. I need la puerta.
Okay.
So even if Tom hadn't died during Applesauce, he would have on the camping trip in Flash Flood, because Eugene would have been there with the equipment to get him out of the river. So we have a possible 4-person body count so far. Well,
that's the same body. We're just saying, even if you say, well, Whit still would have found out about the fire, someone would have rescued him, that proves that that's 2 specific instances now that should have killed Tom, so he's definitely dead by this point. Mortal Coil may have turned out differently without Eugene, but we're going to assume everything went basically the same. Katrina never would have met Eugene, of course, so when she was laid off from the college, she wouldn't have known Whit, she couldn't have found a job at Whit's End, or ended up at Holstein's book, so she would have had to move back to Chicago with her parents. She never would have become a Christian or met Brandon Teller, much to Eugene's happiness.
Yeah. There is a possibility, I guess a very slim possibility, that she could have met Eugene in Chicago.
In Chicago. Well, that's true, but I don't think so. Chicago's a big city.
Yeah. Unless they both got into the top college there or something like that.
True.
So Bernard still would have made his road trip to California, though he might have returned to see Whit leave in time, without the extra time taken up by Eugene and his shenanigans, almost becoming a movie superstar. I just realized how silly that last part's gonna sound to people who haven't listened to it.
Or joining a group of clone batches of him.
Yeah.
And if he hadn't done that, then, Bernard could have taken care of other things quicker and probably wouldn't have got thrown in jail. Maybe. Or would have gotten out of jail quicker. I don't know.
Yeah, Bernard would have just waited out his time in jail for another day, because he was almost out anyway.
Yeah, he wanted to get out. The only thing Eugene did was wake up the warden, so he got out, 12 hours earlier.
Plus, he would have saved, Bernard would have saved so much money. Because think about how much he had to pay to get out early.
Yeah.
So, Eugene is just costing him a lot of money.
So, yeah, without that extra time, Bernard probably would have been back in time to see Whit leave. But, that's not something really significant. Now, we come to where things start snowballing.
Really,
Album-
way worse than they already have, which really...
Album 22, Tom is dead, so Bart Rathbone is the only candidate for mayor of Odyssey. As a consequence, no one votes at all, and as a result, no mayor is elected. Democracy crumbles, and the town of Odyssey takes up the mantle of communism. The city is going to break away from the continental United States and float up into the upper stratosphere where it currently resides now. But in all seriousness, so as far as we know, they said, Bart was running alone. If he kept on doing that, Bart would be elected as the mayor of Odyssey, and Blackard would now have an even more solid hold over the town because, Bill Jenkins was kind of iffy about it, but he had a solid financial hold over Bart.
Personally, I honestly think that everyone would have voted for Jack.
Yeah, as a writing candidate.
Yeah. But who knows if Jack would have said yes.
And the perfect witness, fantastic three-parter, is not going to happen now because there's no Eugene around to write a paper on education in the state that's going to be trying stolen, so none of that will happen.
And who knows, maybe even Holstein's would have shut down because it needed the extra help and Katrina wasn't there.
Who knows? What next, Victoria?
It's Eugene's fault that Jenny was kidnapped.
No, but she wouldn't have been kidnapped.
Yeah, I know, but she wouldn't have been kidnapped if he wasn't there.
Oh, yes, that is true. Yes, you're right.
This one's long. So Eugene never would have done any studies on the mineral in the Tunnel of Wits End in album 25, but Jason still would have called the city inspector to check on the tunnels. Without Eugene's search program or knowledge of the significance of the mineral, it's highly improbable that Blackard's plan would have been figured out. Jason wouldn't have known that this was all regarding Ruku, so he never would have brought the NSA into it. Blackard would have gotten away with the mineral and most likely would have held entire nations hostage. As all was theorized in the final conflict. Dr. Bovril would have come up with a cure for Ruku, allowing Dr. Blackard to live. Blackard would have become infinitely rich with limitless resources at his disposal, and as always, he would be very slick and subtle with his dealings, which means he probably would have kept Whit alive to avoid the massive governmental investigations that it would bring.
If Whit was killed.
Yeah. Then again, Whit and Jason would be the only ones to know about the scope of what was going on.
So we might kill them.
And we'll say, for the sake of the episode, that Blackard lets them live.
Because that'll get too complicated if we kill Whit and Jason.
Everyone's dying.
We have to make a lot of assumptions to keep this analysis going here, or we're always taking the more positive one. So really, even the people that have died in this, timeline we're taking here, has tons of branches out with even more tons of deaths.
Also, Philip Glossman would have gotten that highway built through Tom's land that he always wanted.
Yeah.
So also during this time, Blackard never would have ran for mayor because he already had the city in his pocket through his financial hold on Mayor Rathbone if Bart is elected.
Mayor Rathbone.
That sounds so wrong.
Sounds so weird.
It sounds so wrong in so many ways.
And Richard may or may not still be in jail by this point.
How many years do you get thrown in for death?
For death. You died, go to jail. I don't know, it depends on the circumstances, probably depends on the specific state that you're in, which is Ohio, of course. I don't know how long it would be. Laws change with time and how old you are. I have no idea how long it would be. I think, plus he had other crimes too, so it would be up to the judge / the jury how long exactly. So, Whit returns to Odyssey now, album 27. Mayor Rathbone is going to be succeeded by Mayor Fay, much to everyone's delight.
If Bart was put in charge, wouldn't everyone, like, try and throw him out of office first chance they get?
You think so, but we're just kind of, we have to make assumptions here.
Yeah.
We're assuming. This is all very theoretical. We're not Terezi. We can't see the perfect timelines of theoreticalness going on here.
Unfortunately.
I mean, I am Terezi. I'm a seer of mind, but not quite that good. I'm not God tier.
So I'm a seer of time, so
was she.
I've died almost as many times as, like, all the other people have died in Eugene's absence.
Yeah. So, yeah, Mayor Faye is definitely the lesser of two evils here. Tom is not around to create the Timothy Center, so the Shepherds are never going to come to Odyssey, and they're never going to move here. Aubrey isn't going to start working at Wits End. Nor,
And
obviously, is she ever
Christian.
going to become a Christian.
Yeah. Well, she might.
Maybe. we're perfectly in sync today.
There's a chance that she could.
Yeah.
Because of her parents' influence, but we're not getting into that.
Yeah. So you can go, Nick.
Okay. So Blackard's revenge would have likely still happened, and the reasons that the Blackard program was in such a long delay in the virus's activation was likely because Blackard knew he was going to die from Ruku.
Knew.
Wait, is this if Blackard did die?
Well, this is the other thing I figured out while we were writing this. Basically, I was thinking, Blackard implanted this virus to, make another one of him so he could live forever. But two questions came to my mind that I'd never really questioned before. Sort of questioned. Number one, I sort of questioned this. Why did it wait so long to activate? Number two, I hadn't really thought about this before. Why did he have some kind of way to assure that this wouldn't happen while he was still alive? Because he wouldn't want two of him running around. He wouldn't want, the program to turn Aubrey into one of him, and he's still alive somewhere else, and now there's two Blackards. He wouldn't like that. So, what I realized was, at this point, Blackard knew that he had Ruku, and he had no idea that they would have been able to make a cure from the mineral. He thought he was a dead man. He didn't know how long it was going to take, but it was going to be fairly soon. And so he implanted this program and put a delay of a couple years on it, quite a few years, so that it would only activate after a long enough span of time that he knew he would be dead by that point, so there wouldn't be two of them running around.
See, the thing I never understood about Blackard's revenge is, like, if he did actually succeed, I use the term did, like, in taking over Aubrey, he would just, like, walk around as, like, a little girl and be like, give me all your power, countries, and stuff.
Yeah, I know. But he would have still had all of the knowledge he had. He would have still had, he would have still known the numbers of all his Swiss bank accounts around the world and had access to all the weapons and
stuff
like that.
If you're, how old was she? Like 12 years old or something like that at the time, it's not going to do much.
Well, no, but Blackard never shows his face anyways in, his dealings. He'd be able to convince his underlings like Glossman that it was still him, and then they do all his dirty work for him, right?
I want to see a scene with Blackard trying to convince Glossman that he, as Audrey, is Blackard. That would be so amazing.
Even better, because Blackard walks all over Glossman. I want to see him do that as Aubrey Andromeda Shepherd.
Oh my gosh.
Perfect.
Please make this focus. Please.
But the point we're making here then is, so even though Blackard lived, it was just a time delay, we think, in that program, so it still would have activated in this timeline, because he didn't know that, he was going to succeed and they were going to find a cure and he was going to be healed and he was going to live. So the virus still activates. Someone would have been in the Imagination Station, not Aubrey, because she never moved to Odyssey, but Blackard still probably would have been defeated in the same way that he was before. Because it probably would have been a kid in Odyssey who knew who Dr. Blackard was.
Wouldn't it be really ironic if for some reason, like, Edwin was in the Imagination Station, they took over Edwin? And he was, like, walking around, and then he's like, it's like nothing's changed.
That would be interesting. He probably would think it was just, like, his own mind doing it.
And then he'd have, like, his very own lackey. Because, like, Shakespeare. And Shakespeare would be like, is there something wrong, sir? And he'd be like, no.
Alright, moving on to Novacom, Victoria.
So Campbell College would not have been selected for the radio wave study by Andromeda, I can't talk. It wouldn't have been selected for the radio wave study by Andromeda. So no matter where Eugene was, it's very likely he would have been selected for this. Wait. It's unlikely. You read this one, I can't.
So Campbell College would not have been selected for the radio wave study by Andromeda, no matter where Eugene was. It's unlikely he would have been selected for the project because he wasn't he was someone who was very capable of doing it, but that's not the primary reason he was chosen for it. He was chosen for it because he was the future son-in-law of Armitage Shanks, who is on the board at Andromeda. So another team would have been chosen somewhere else.
I can't read today.
The Imagination Station still would have been the necessary hardware ingredient for the Nova boxes. But the problem is, if the RWS team was successful with the research, the fact that they were somewhere outside of Odyssey, who knows where, would have made it pretty much impossible for Whit and the crew to be able to put the pieces together, because it wouldn't have all been together in Odyssey. They wouldn't have had all the pieces in their lap to put together. It would have been too spread apart. They wouldn't have figured it out in time. Andromeda probably would have achieved total world domination through mind control. If they weren't successful with radio wave study research, the entire Novacom saga would have never really taken place, and we're going to continue on with that timeline. Because,
imagine how bad it would be if, like, Blackard teamed up with, like, Charles.
Or the German.
That, too.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this one because it's short, so I'll be able to, hopefully. Okay. Mitch would have never moved to Odyssey, much to many fangirls' sadness.
Or happiness, depending on who you ship.
And he never would have gotten together to Connie. Same thing as I said before. The road trip to Washington with Joanne never would have taken place. So I guess...
Joanne would have just flown to Washington to sell the compass.
Yeah, I guess Borland's relationship with Mikey would still kind of be messed up in that case.
Yeah. So the Ashanti tribe in Africa was, of course, never visited by Leonard or Thelma. That was the defining point of this question. Or Eugene or Katrina. Leonard never put in a request for their help at Around the World missions, so even now, nobody's visited them. They're still living in fear and isolation from the River of Death. Hand Up is never going to be created, and obviously this is an extremely important point. This is going to change so many, many things in the last few albums without Hand Up, because, its involvement has been so important and present lately that everyone would be dead if it didn't exist in, the new era and the Odyssey Adventure Club.
This is like the only thing we talk about.
It's literally the most talked about point on this podcast is Hand Up, and I don't know why.
It's just like, why can't you? What happened to
We
it?
can't let it go.
We're gonna have to make like a video, like the top 10 things that could have happened to Hand Up.
Our top 10 things we obsess about. Jeff Lewis, Bernard not being on Odyssey, Hand Up. That tablecloth at home.
That's it. We unobsess about Mitch.
Matthew Parker probably be slightly more dangerous around technology because Eugene wouldn't be around to, corral him in that sense. Basically, the last point here. Do you want to read the last one?
The long one again.
Yeah.
Katrina and Eugene are both absent for the Green Ring conspiracy. No one takes enough interest in Buck to realize his connection, and ultimately, the caper is never foiled without that knowledge.
Also, because Eugene, although Whit might have been able to do this if he had enough time, Eugene was the one who took the information on the Appleberry and decrypted it and found the numbers that were same as the numbers in the backpack, so they wouldn't have known that was important otherwise. So Katrina and Eugene were both significant. Go on.
Connie, Penny, Wooten, and Jason are still on the train, but there wouldn't have been anyone else around to change the tracks. Even without the track being changed, it's likely that Jason would have overcome the drivers and been able to stop the train. If not, And the 4 of them would have been dumped somewhere along the way. And
They probably would have survived.
yeah.
Probably.
Probably, but knowing this episode, probably not.
And that's about it, as far as we can tell, from this point in time. So,
hopefully we didn't miss anything.
in summary...
I realized something. One less person would have shown up on Connie's date with Jeff. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. So, in summary, if Eugene didn't come, Tom would have died, Bart would be mayor, Blackard would have won, Novacom would have won, Whit and Jason might be dead, Connie might be dead, everybody might be dead, the entire world might have been completely destroyed in nuclear holocaust. Eugene is quite important to this show. We're going to have another discussion episode at some point. Maybe we're going to. I'm not sure if it's kind of null now that we've done this episode. It was going to be, is Eugene the ultimate catalyst of drama in
I think
Odyssey?
we can say yes and no because of this one. Like, Whit is definitely a large factor. He's probably about as big, if not bigger, than Eugene. I'm going to go as big-ish.
Also, fun fact, Eugene is the most common person to appear on album covers as well. He's appeared on more than anyone else, I believe.
No, I think it's still like that, yeah.
Anyways,
I wonder how Trent would have dealt with the invisible dog and stuff.
Another part of an episode that I heard just earlier. Today. Yeah. Track 2, to be specific.
What are you talking about now?
I heard track 2 of The Invisible Dog earlier today while I was playing Minecraft.
Anyway, Trent probably would have dealt with everything better, because the reason he was trying to figure out all that stuff was because of what Eugene said in class.
That's true.
There'd be like no teachers
however,
left in
who knows
Odyssey,
who would have been the
Eugene
substitute
teaches
teacher.
and Katrina teaches, and they teach when other people can't teach. So, like, everyone, no one would be educated.
Fred Zachary would have had to fill for everyone.
No one would have been educated in Odyssey at all. And everyone would...
Fred Zachary for everyone's teacher.
Well, I guess it doesn't really matter that no one's educated. No one's still educated when Fred Zachary is in charge. No offense to him. And I know he was Connie's teacher sometimes, but yeah.
And she was valedictorian. Come on, Victoria. Be nice.
Yeah, but still. Anyway, you don't need to be educated if you're dead.
So, that's about it. Yeah, Eugene, very important. I think that's everything for this What If, and probably for this episode. Do you have anything else to say before we talk about next time?
It's just surprising how much an effect he has on everything. Yeah. Can you people see why it took us so long to set up for
Tom
this
being
now?
dead was a huge ripple in all of this.
It was probably about like half an hour before. Like, I was barely even paying attention, honestly, to the conversation we were having about, like, when I was just saying random things every now and then, and I was like typing something out, and then I looked up, I'm like, wait a second, Tom would be dead. And Devin's just like, what? And it just snowballed down the hill from there.
Crazy times. So, that's it for now. Next time, what are we doing, Victoria?
We are reviewing 2 episodes, which are Patrick, A Heart Afire, Part 1, and...
That's the second one.
You say the other one.
Yep. In a Kingdom Far Away, which is, irrespectively, the OAC episode for March, and a March-themed episode, because March 17th is, of course, St. Patrick's Day. So, what better episode to pick? There are none.
Not like Easter or anything. That's April. That's April.
That's April. Not that I remember that.
We kind of forgot that it was April, so we're not going to be reviewing the Imagination Station.
It doesn't really matter, because either way, doing, having our March episode be Patrick Part 1 means that April had to be Patrick Part 2. So even if I'd remembered that there was a holiday in April other than April Fool's Day, I'm a terrible
so glad
Christian.
that we didn't have to review I Slapped Florida.
Either way, we still would have had we still would have had to do Patrick Part 2, so it's a moot point. So that's what we're doing next time. Stay tuned for that. It's also episode 30 of the Oddcast. Very exciting. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube.
And
I've been Francis.
Victoria.
And we'll see you
Bye,
next
guys.
time. Bye.